We commence with topicals, and the first topical is in the name of Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan, who has 5 minutes.
Last time, Táim buíocht an deisitá gom láirt faoin ábhar seo inniu, agus go bhfuil an tara is jigs an seo I láthair cuma. Minister, there was clear expert advice from scientists at the National Parks and Wildlife Services that the RHD2 virus could potentially wipe out the entire hare population. And this is the same hare that is so iconic in our culture. This is a virus that's highly contagious, and we have the facts about this. When it was first reported in China, it killed millions of animals in the first year. In 2010, a virulent strain emerged in France, similar one in Spain, causing death. And within a few days of infection, what was seen was partial paralysis, bleeding from the eyes and the mouth, convulsions and fits before the animal died. And similar distress was witnessed in Ireland with hares and rabbits. Now, RHD2 has appeared in Ireland, I think it's 8 counties already, where animals have tested positive. And on the 24th of September, Minister, your own words were that based on what we've been able to establish over the last 7 weeks, the virus appears to be widespread in Ireland. It's known to be highly contagious, easily spread, and environmental contamination presents significant difficulties in terms of any biosecurity responses. Netting and collecting hares for coursing meetings has been identified as a significant risk factor in spreading the disease. So we know that rabbits and hares are vital to the wild ecosystem. Now, the National Parks and Wildlife Service, and I'm quoting them, they said, should this disease be as infectious and lethal here as it has been in Europe, the impact on the Irish hare could be catastrophic. And on the 10th of October, Minister, your words were that the catching of hares in nets, transportation in boxes, collection and holding of hares in confined areas will increase the risk. All very clear signs that the right decision was made when you suspended the hare netting licence. And in spite of all of that, in spite of other outbreaks, you lifted that suspension. And I mean, it was obvious that there was lobbying from TDs in your own party, in Fianna Fáil, in Sinn Féin and in the Rural Alliance. Now, I know we're talking about a few TDs in each group, because when I had my debate here on a bill to ban live hare coursing, I had TDs from all of the parties coming and telling me that they wanted to support my bill to ban live hare coursing, but because of the whip, they were not able to do that. Just imagine a greyhound owner finding a sick or infected hare captured for coursing. Do you think they're going to contact the National Parks and Wildlife Service? It wouldn't be in their interest to do so, even though it's a condition of the licence, because the coursing would be stopped. So I'm asking that all live hare coursing meetings will be monitored closely, including hares in captivity at the compounds. Now, I would just turn to open coursing. In a reply to then TD Clare Dail, you said you would be re-evaluating open coursing. Your understanding was that in an open coursing, hares are not captured. They just happen to be there when the owners and the greyhounds arrive. Now, there is video footage of 19 hares who just happened to be in an area when the greyhounds arrived with the owners, and there's evidence of that. So my question is, have open coursing meetings ever been monitored? And I'm asking that the open coursing meetings in 2019-2020 fixtures list, that will be closely monitored by the National Parks and Wildlife Services. I think reckless is the word that I would use regarding your U-turn on the decision to issue licences, and we're now into 16 weeks season of coursing, which is allowing the courses to capture the hares in the so-called unaffected areas. I mean, are you 100% confident that the other counties, apart from the 8 where rabbits and hares have tested positive, are they all clear of the disease? You know, the hare is normally a solitary animal, netted for coursing, kept in a confined space. It's an ideal condition for spreading the virus, you know, and you are allowing this now. There is an alternative to live hare coursing, that's drag coursing. And I just lastly make the point that a recent Red Sea poll found that 77% of Irish people agree that live hare coursing should be banned. There were 9% who disagreed, with 14% who don't know.
Thank you, Deputy. The Minister is 4 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy, for raising this issue. And firstly, I think it's important to be aware of the potential impact of the RHD2 virus, and my original decision in August to suspend the licences to the Irish Coursing Club on foot of the virus, which was confirmed in wild rabbits and hares, and you very eloquently set out those reasons, and indeed my own words. And this disease itself was first reported in domestic or farmed rabbits in China, as you mentioned, in 1984, and it did kill millions of animals within 1 year of its discovery. And in 2010, a new and more virulent strain of this virus, known as RHD2, emerged in France, as the Deputy mentioned, and it causes death, and you very explicitly set out those symptoms, which are quite explicit and distressing, and most distressingly, when they actually die at the end, there's fits and convulsions, and it's very upsetting to witness. The virus has been detected throughout Europe in wild rabbits and in hares, and the hare itself, as you say, it's iconic and it's native to Ireland, and it's found nowhere else. So should the disease prove as infectious or as lethal here, as it has done elsewhere in Europe, the impact on the hare would be catastrophic, and I absolutely accept that. The RHD2 has been seen in wild rabbits in the UK for a few years, and the brown hare has also been hit with RHD2 in the UK. A single record of RHD2 was reported from a wild rabbit in Cork in 2016, but no further records were confirmed in the wild here until last August. And then 2 records came from rabbits, one in Wicklow and the other in County Clare. And the first positive report for an Irish hare was on the 9th of August, which was an animal found dying in the Wexford Wildfowl Reserve. And there is no cure for this disease, and although pet rabbits can be vaccinated against the disease, it hasn't been tested on hares, and clearly there would be significant difficulties in the context of vaccinating animals in the wild. And as we know, there's approximately 250,000 hares in Ireland, in addition to about 2 million rabbits. But the scientific advice available to me at the time indicated that the catching of hares in nets, as you say, they're a solitary animal, their transportation in boxes, and their keeping in confined areas like coursing hare parks can all be considered to increase the risk of disease spread. And in these circumstances, and given my responsibilities specifically in relation to the conservation status of the Irish hare, I did decide to suspend the licences issued to the Irish Coursing Club on the 9th of August to capture and tag hares for the season, until we had a clear understanding of the extent and the spread and the implications of the RHD2 virus. And the House will be aware that licences under the Wildlife Acts are required by the Irish Coursing Club on behalf of their affiliated clubs to facilitate the netting and tagging of hares for closed park meetings. But since these initial incidents, a request for public involvement has led to more than 75 reports of dead rabbits and hares across the country, and each report has been followed up vigilantly by the local National Parks and Wildlife Service rangers. RHD2 has been confirmed in 4 hares found in Dublin and Wexford, and 21 rabbits found in the counties of Carlow, Clare, Cork, Kildare, Leitrim, Meath, Offaly, Tipperary, Wexford and Wicklow. And since the suspension of the ICC licences on the 9th of August, discussions have been ongoing between the NPWS and the Department of Agriculture and the Irish Coursing Club on the impact of this virus. And I recently, as you said yourself, issued revised licences to allow the netting of tagging and hares, but there are specific restrictions and conditions attached explicitly to those licences being issued. The capturing of hares and coursing activity is prohibited in areas within a 25-kilometre radius of where wild rabbits or wild hares have tested positive for the virus. And new zones will be added on an ongoing basis if further positive tests arise. And in these new zones, the capturing of hares will have to cease immediately, and coursing will only be possible with already captured hares where the hares are certified in writing by a veterinary surgeon as being healthy, as these will only be released following certification from a veterinary surgeon that they are healthy. And I can tell you it's already impacted on some of the coursing events.
Deputy, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your very graphic answer, which has really confirmed the need to have suspended the licences and really to have continued the suspension. I mean, you have an awful lot of faith in the Irish Coursing Club and in the advocates of coursing that if they come across a diseased hare, that they are going to report it, because, as I said, they won't be in their best interest, to do that. Now, I did read about the roadmap that you had been drawing up on this, and, I was just very much struck by the extent of the work work that is involved in this, you know, with the field studies, the tests, secure paddocks, CCTV, microchipping, nominated personnel to monitor this, and also a scientific literary view of the impacts of the RHD and 1 and 2. And I just wonder, you know, the additional cost this is going to be, as opposed to just a straightforward ban on the netting. Minister, I know you met the coursing TDs and lobbyists, and you know, I was just wondering if you facilitated those who are against coursing, and if you gave them time also to put their points to you. There was another point that I was informed of that, you know, you might clarify this. I mean, were you informed that if the licences weren't, if the suspension wasn't lifted, that it could lead to a cull of those greyhounds who course, because that particular greyhound is not really suitable for rehoming? I hear the Irish Coursing Club say that they will vaccinate the hares that they capture against the disease, but there's no vaccination that's going to protect hares from being mauled and tossed and euthanised after a coursing meeting. Also, the vaccination, while it's licensed in Europe, I don't believe it's available in Ireland, and it's also only applicable to rabbits, not to hares. And of course, we have the lovely irony that the Irish Coursing Club is going to continue to liaise with the National Parks and Wildlife Service and continue to work to protect the status of the Irish hare. And I note they use the word status, they're not using the word survival or well-being of the hare. But then we know how they are responsible for the injuries and the deaths of many Irish hares, all of which we have the facts on those. So I think it was a really retrograde step to suspend, not to reissue the licences, and I hope it doesn't come back to haunt us, that we'll see the end of the iconic Irish hare.
2 minutes, Minister.
Thank you, Deputy, and I appreciate your concerns in relation to this. And you know, suffice to say, from my own perspective, the protection and to protect the conservation status of the hare is my primary concern, and I had to ensure a balanced response from government to this particular issue. It should assuage your concerns somewhat that there are very strict conditions set down. For example, as I said, the Irish Coursing Club vet has to certify in writing that all hares that are captured are healthy. Second of all, that the number of courses are reduced proportionately. And third of all, that the number that can be coursed, it can only be done twice. Also, these trials and these field tests, if you like, that are ongoing should give us a clearer picture as to the status and the condition of the hares and the rabbits. Also, there have been no new hares that have tested positive since the beginning of October, which is important. The field tests that are ongoing are in Limerick, in Tipperary, in Cork or in Cavan Town, and they will take 10 weeks to conclude. But it's very important that we brought the Irish Coursing Club on board, together with the Department of Agriculture, so that we had a collaborative approach to dealing with this. So I am satisfied that there is swabbing, there is tagging and microchipping, that the certification is in writing, and all of these things should ensure that we conserve the population of the hare, which isn't at the moment at risk in Ireland. As I said, there's 250,000 hares in Ireland at the moment. There's no reason why that should change. There are also the 29 conditions attached generally to the licences in terms of coursing, you know, in terms of not coursing sick or injured hares. So these conditions are even in addition to that. And if it turns out that there are more hares, then we would have to review these licences again. So it's constantly being monitored. My door is always open in terms of talking to both the pro-coursing and anti-coursing side in relation to this, and in terms of trying to achieve a balance.
Thank you. The next.